Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So grateful to be sharing this space so that I can give myself a chance to talk about Emunah and Bitachon because that's one of the most powerful ways to grow our Emunah and Bitachon. That's what we're here for. We're here to become Ma'aminim B'nai Ma'aminim, to carry along the golden chain of the believers. Avram was the greatest of the believers. Avram Avinu started the path. Achad Anok, he is described in the Lashon of Shira Shirim. He's the one giant. Avram Avinu was the giant of Emunah. And Be'ez Hashem, we as children of Avram and Sarah, we are going in their path. And Be'ez Hashem, becoming greater and greater ma'aminim. That's what we're going to try and do. And that's what our little get together on Thursdays is about. So everyone who's joining me, thank you for being here. And those who listen to the recording, thank you for being here. And those who send me your feedback, thank you for sending me your feedback. It's always so encouraging. Parshas Bo. So Rav Asher brings down a story. A story is told about a Jew who had a financial disagreement with a non-Jew. And things developed such that they ended up needing to go to adjudication to get a judge to decide what should be done in this case. And the judge was a non-Jewish judge. So the Jew thought things through, and he sent the judge a nice financial incentive. And the judge said to this Jew, how could you try and bribe me? He said, doesn't it say in your Torah that you're not allowed to give a bribe to a judge? It will turn the heart of the judge towards one of the litigants, and then the judgment that's going to come out is going to be a false judgment. It's not going to be a pure Torah judgment, because he is going to be nogea b'davar. He is going to be he's going to be leaning towards the one who bribed him. So how dare you bribe me? Because it's going to affect the judgment. And so the Jew answered him back. He said, if you were a Jew, if you, the judge, was a Jew, and Reuven and Shimon would come before you to judge their financial case, then your perspective of both of these two Jews who came before you would be equal. One Jew against the other Jew coming before a third Jew. We're all in the same boat together. Your heart wouldn't turn more towards one of them than the other, and you would be able to give a true judgment. And so that's why if a Jew tries to bribe a Jewish judge against his other Jewish litigant, then he is going to alter the heart of the judge towards him, and to make his judgment come out better, he said. But that's not the case when a Jew and a non-Jew come before a judge who is also a non-Jew. What happens then? Here he says, the mind of the judge, of the non-Jewish judge, is not necessarily equally turned and equally open towards a Jewish litigant against a non-Jewish litigant. On the contrary, the heart of a non-Jewish judge is going to initially be more lenient and more leaning towards the non-Jewish person presenting himself before him. And that's why I have sent the bribe that I sent, in order to balance out the scale, because your heart was naturally turned towards the non-Jewish person, who is involved in this case against me. And so in order to even things out a little bit, that's why I have sent the thing that I wanted. That's why I have sent the money, the bribe to the judge. This whether it's a mashal, whether it's a real story that took place, Rav Asher brings this to illustrate what goes on inside our hearts and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu understood the need to weigh in within Paro's heart. And this is a question that the Meforshim, that the Rishonim and the Acharonim all asked about. What is going on? How do we understand the fact that Hashem hardened Paro's heart? So let's understand just again the context. Here we have the plagues start to come down on Paro, who has refused to release the Jewish people, his slaves, even though Aaron and Moshe Rabbeinu came to him saying that our God has said, let our people go. Paro refused to hear it. Moshe and Aaron told him there were going to be plagues coming to punish you, in order that you should let the people go. And Paro initially said, I don't know who your God is. My people don't know who he is. We don't have to listen to him. And over Hashem hardened the heart of Paro so that he wouldn't be influenced by the plagues, even after the plagues began to come. And there was no water to drink. And he himself suffered terribly. The frogs jumped inside him and he had nothing to drink. Even though all of all of Mitzrayim was suffering terribly. Nevertheless, Paro, Hashem hardened the heart of Paro, and he didn't want to send them out. But Rav Asher says, Paro really didn't want to send them out. And when the plagues came, his heart was hardened from a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the hardening of the heart was so that the meaning, okay, so the plagues, excuse me, I just want to get it clear so that we all understand what I'm saying here. Okay, I have to think it through another time. The plagues had the power to allow to totally turn Paro and make him say, leave. Okay, the very first plagues were powerful enough and disastrous enough for Mitzrayim, and the results were so devastating to the people and to the land that they were already powerful enough for Paro to turn around and say, I don't want them here, and to send them out. And if that would have been the case, then Paro would not have had free choice. His choice was not free choice because the plagues were so powerful that it would have completely devastated his capacity to have free choice. Because he didn't really want to let them go. Okay, he didn't want to let them go, but it was the devastation of the plague that was overcoming his mind and saying we should let them go. But that he didn't make a decision to really let them go. So that's why Paro created this balance, just as in the story of the Jew who came to the court. That when there's an imbalance already, then we want to create balance. So there was an imbalance. Paro didn't want to send them out. That was his natural way. That was the way that he was thinking. And then as soon as the plague started to come, even the first plague, he would have wanted to send them out. But he wouldn't have made the decision to actually send them out. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardened his heart so that he would be able to go through a process of having free choice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Paro to have free choice. And in the end, his decision to free them was ultimately from absolute free choice. Because that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that it would all be through free choice. Kikach gozrach of Masai. This is what a Kadosh Baruch Hu has decided. Sheha'adam yaseh mashi yaseh al pi b'chiras liboy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that we should be able to choose with free choice. Now, we're going to understand another aspect of the Torah of Rav Asher as far as it comes to free choice. And we're going to ask the question, so where do we actually have free choice? Let's first of all understand what Rav Dessler said. Okay, so as you're asking the question, doesn't hardening his heart prevent free choice? So what Rav Asher was explaining is because his heart was initially he didn't want to send them out. Okay, he did not want to send them out, and the plague would have taken away his free choice because it was totally overwhelmed by the enormity of the plague. So he didn't have a free choice. He was overwhelmed, and so in order that he should get back to his balanced state of free choice, okay, so in order to allow Paro to really have balance in his thinking, Hashem hardened his heart so that the effects of the plague wouldn't send him scurrying away to let them out without him having free choice. Okay, so actually, what Rav Asher is explaining is that the hardening of his heart, meaning so he wouldn't be so fearful and overwhelmed by the plague, so that he would then be able to rationally think about allowing them to go and not just have a knee-jerk reaction out of the fear of the plague. So his heart was hardened in order that he should be able to have free choice. This is the degree to which HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates, right, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates in order that we should have free choice. So Rav Dessler describes what is called the Nekudas HaBechira, the level of where a person has choice. And Rav Dessler builds his Torah in such a way that he says that we all make choices that take us to the next choice, that take us to the next choice, but that each choice is, we only have that one choice that we can make at that moment. So a person who is not even Shomer Shabbos, okay, a person who doesn't know Torah, a Tinok Shenishba, a child who was grown up in a home without Torah, such a child cannot, or let's say as an adult, okay, let's say at age 24, this person wakes up and says, I want to understand Torah more, I want to learn Torah more. Such a person cannot choose to all of a sudden learn Torah 24 hours a day and keep 613 mitzvahs and keep them perfectly. That's not the free choice that's given to a completely non-committed, uneducated Jew. But what that Jew can commit to and make a choice to is, I commit to learning more. I commit to doing whatever I know. That person is capable of choosing. And once the person, again, it's like we constantly have like a tree with choices splitting off. And at any given moment, we have a binary kind of a choice. Either this or this. We could choose to make a good choice. We could choose to make a not good choice. If we make a not good choice, we could then come around again. We could choose to do tshuva for the not such great choice. We could choose to continue on the negative choice. If we make a good choice, then we have more choices. All of a sudden, from the next rung on the ladder, a whole different set of choices appear to us. And we have the choice to make another one choice in the right direction. But it's presented like a ladder. What Yaakov Avinu saw the angels ascending up a ladder and coming down. You cannot run up a ladder. You can take one step at a time. And in life, we get to make one choice at a time. We get to move forward with one choice. And Rav Dessler explains that is the choice that is accessible to us at our level right now. And just as a Kadosh Baruch Hu leveled the field for Parai, and just as in the mashal that Rav Asher brings to us, that this Yidala was going to level the field for the judge to try and help him get a more just verdict. Whereas it would appear that giving a bribe to a judge would actually be would negatively affect the judgment. But again, in that little anecdote, he had to balance it in a way that it seems counterintuitive. And so our initial understanding of the situation with Para is also counterintuitive, as you asked, but wasn't hardening the heart preventing him from having free choice. That's what it seems initially, and that's what all the Rishonim ask. Isn't that preventing him from having free choice? And that's why Baruch explains, no, this was actually creating the free choice. The mechanism of hardening his heart and lowering his fear and resistance because of the plagues actually allowed him to have the peace in his mind to be able to come to the rational, conscious, focused choice to let them go. It was done with free choice, and it was like a sign to all of us of how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu values everybody's free choice. But going back to Rav Asher, and again, I'm specifically quoting this from Rav Asher because not everybody is going to say this, okay? And it may be confusing for some, but in the context of the Torah that we understand from Rav Asher, and how we understand it in the context of Emunah B'Tachon, it actually gives us a key to understanding a lot about life. Okay, so this is Rav Asher's derech in understanding free choice in Emunah. In the derech of Rav Asher, every thought that we have is a thought that comes from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Every word that we say, whether we say a word or whether we didn't say a word, whether we remembered something, we didn't remember something, whether we fell, whether we didn't, and whether we followed the seabase, the causes that allow us to enter into certain situations, whether we recognize that they come from Hashem or whether we don't recognize that they come from Hashem. The only choice that we actually have is recognizing that everything comes from Hashem and that nothing comes from anyone else at all. That's Yiras Shamayim. When it says, Hakol bidei Shamayim, chutz miYiras Shamayim, everything is in Hashem's hands, except for Yiras Shamayim. What's the Yiras Shamayim? Is the choice to know that it's all Hashem. The choice to know that if whether we made the wrong turn, whether we made the right turn, it was a Kadosh Baruch Hu made us make the wrong turn, a Kadosh Baruch Hu made us make the right turn. If yes, before any person does an Aveira, a Kadosh Baruch Hu sends us a Siba. A Kadosh Baruch Hu sends us a little sign, a little thought, a moment where someone might see you. And we could either say, I'm ignoring that, or we could say, Hashem sent me a sign. It's all from Hashem. It's only from Hashem. Ultimately, whatever we think, whatever we move, the fact that we have fingers that move, the fact that we have a brain that could recognize and think, the fact that we could notice whatever Hashem is sending to us, the fact that we could see something, the fact that we have eyes is only from Hashem. The fact that we have a brain is only from Hashem. The fact that we could think or that we could remember something that we learned about Emunah at the right moment. All of this is only from Hashem. And so we can't take credit if you make the right choice because Hashem sent us a warning, or Hashem sent us a sign, or Hashem sent us the right thought. So it was only Hashem. And so our choice, the choice that's presented to us at any given opportunity, is to believe that it comes from Hashem only. This is the very first of the animamins that we say, animamin be'emuna shalema. Shabayra yisbach shemai. Who levad erukenu, who levad asa oised v'yase lekol hamaisim. He did, does, and will do alone everything. Everything is only from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Only a Kadosh Baruch Hu does everything. And so we actually, the only thing that we can do is have Yir Shamayim. The only thing that we can do is actually use our freedom of choice to know that it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. To use my freedom of choice to know Hashem guided me to this, so that if I failed and if I did something that was wrong and I had bad manners, I lost my temper, I said something that wasn't so kind, I let's say I didn't act generously when I could have. When if I used my free choice at that moment not to be my best self, it's so that I can then use my free choice to say, I am human. I am limited. I need to, I can act with humility to know that the only perfection in this world is the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It doesn't mean I'm evil and bad and I'm damned. Chas v'shalom. What it means is I am constantly on the journey of improvement. I'm not going to, as we discussed last week, that we are constantly in this swing between despair and pride, between I did it or I'm never going to do it. Between I'm everything, look what I did, or I'm nothing, look how I failed. And the antidote is this moment of free choice of knowing if I succeeded, it's because the Kadosh Baruch Hu made all of this. Hashem allowed me to succeed in this. And only Kadosh Baruch Hu was the one who allowed this to succeed. And if I failed, it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge. Only He did this. He is running the show and everything about this show. And there's nothing that I could have done to make it different because the outcome is only in Hashem's hands. If it wouldn't have been me, it would have been somebody else. If it would not have been me, if it wouldn't have been me and my mistake, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have allowed this outcome to come through somebody else. So not only am I don't blame myself and I don't put myself down, but I say I am human. If I witness my lower traits, my shadow self, we could call it, the parts of me that I don't love and I'm not so proud of. My job is with free choice that's in the context of Emunah, is to say, Hashem wanted me to see my humanity. Hashem wanted me to live my humble self. Hashem wanted me to live with Him because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says of a proud person, Ein ani v'hu yachol ledar b'yachad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot live. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I cannot live with a proud person. I can only live with a humble person. And so Hashem gives us the gift of perceiving our limitations so that we can stay humble, so the Kadosh Baruch Hu can be with us, because Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to leave us. And if we get proud, sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, I really want to come back and live with you so closely. So I want you to see that you're really a limited human being and that you're capable of making mistakes and that you're absolutely far from perfect. And the more you can realize that, and the more that you can hold within your heart how simple you are and how far you are from perfection, the more I can move in with you. In the tefillah of the Abder Rav, that he wrote a beautiful tefillah before tefillah, before davening, and he says in that prayer, he says, if you see someone who's more intelligent than you, then you humble yourself before him because he knows more than you. And if you find somebody that's less intelligent than you, then you can say to yourself, you're more guilty than he is because he doesn't understand as much as you do. So certainly you need to use your intelligence to do better than he is. So there's always a reason why to respect those around you. And there's always, even if you're intelligent, that means that you're mochayev, meaning the more intelligent that we are means that we are more culpable. More is expected of us because of that. And we're surrounded by those who know more than us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is guiding us to live with humility, because that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu can be. Humility is the ultimate emuna. It's part of the same midah. How so? Let's understand this. Because Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I cannot live with the haughty person. I cannot live with a gaifton, with a proud person. What's the inner thinking of the proud person? I did it. It's me. I exist. I am a proud person is so full of themselves that they can't find room in the universe even for Kadosh Baruch Hu. They need to take the credit for whatever they've done. And they cannot take accountability for any fault. They will blame everybody else for the faults, and they will take credit for everything. The opposite of a humble person who will say, okay, HaKadosh Baruch allowed me to see my faults, that through these faults that I have, HaKadosh Baruch allowed me to see that I'm still so far from perfection. And the good that I did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, brought about this outcome. So I can't take credit for that either. So I'm not that bad because I'm just a human being the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created me to be. He created me to be this flesh and blood, limited kind of person. So I don't feel bad about it. I want to improve, but it brings me to humility rather than despair. But pride allows no room for Kadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, a prideful person has no emunah. A person who is everything about them. If everything is about them, then nothing is about Hashem. Ein oid milvadoi, that there's nothing apart from Hashem, means I'm also part of the ein. I'm part of the nothing. There's nothing apart from Hashem. So I'm part of that nothing. There's nothing apart from Hashem. And so Emunah goes together with another. And that's why we saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble of all created individuals in the entire history of the world. Because he had the closest experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Emunah is the living experience of Hashem. And so Moshe Rabbeinu had the closest Emunah experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so what corroborated that was the ultimate, and another, that he knew himself to be nothing other than Hashem. V'nachnu ma. And what are we? Said Moshe and Aaron. What are we? We're nothing. So Emunah is another. The more we have gaiva within ourselves, the less emunah we have. The more humble we are, the more that we recognize that we literally do nothing. We don't take credit for the good that comes through us, but we recognize that we're simply a conduit. We are a piece of the mechanism through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings things into his world, and we have the tremendous plus of being a conduit for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness. And if we see that mistakes come through us, or painful things, or things that we weren't proud of come through us, we recognize Hashem allowed me to see this so that I can stay humble, so that I can stay a vehicle for his presence within me, so that I don't push him away, chas v'shalom, through pride, so that through remaining humble, through being cognizant and seeing before my eyes always my limitations and my shadow and the darker parts of myself, I can therefore have the space to bring Kadosh Baruch Hu inside me. Some people think that we have to, in front of Kadosh Baruch Hu, say how great we are. We have to recount all of our praises and tell Hashem how good we are and how much our merits are in order to be able to get Kadosh Baruch Hu to do things for us. That's gaiva to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that pushes away, as it were, Kadosh Baruch Hu. But when we come and we say, I did wrong, here, exactly, I am responsible because I have these limitations. I am responsible because I have these limitations and I wasn't successful in overcoming these limitations. And this is how Hashem has made me. Okay, so I'm responsible for whatever's in my hands to change. But also I recognize the Kodesh Baruch has made me a limited human being. I'm just gonna uh, mute because I hear some noise coming from one of the members. So I'm just going to let me see if I can just ask you to mute just a second. Everybody, can you just check that you're muted so that I don't, because I don't see how to mute you unless you wanted to actually speak up and say something. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for noticing that there was some sound coming in. So we when we notice that question just came in. So how does that go with taking responsibility for our past misdeeds? If we did something, okay, if a Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed us to fail, meaning to make a negative choice, right? Where we didn't make the right choice because of the limitations of the physical nature of the Kadosh Baruch Hu made us. We were too attached to our possession to share them, or we were too jealous of somebody to say a nice word to them, or whatever we weren't big enough to live up to. Okay, and we make a record and we realize that it wasn't that we could have done better. We wanted to do better. Then the accountability, what's the real accountability, is not so much what we did, but the accountability is the humility of being a small person, the humility of knowing that's who I am. The choice, again, the choice comes back to seeing Hashem or seeing me. Every moment it's actually a binary choice, on or off. On is I see Hashem. Off is I see only myself. If I see Hashem, Hashem made me with all of these limitations. Hashem made my life with these choices. And Hashem may be overwhelmed at this moment. And actually, I realized that I didn't have the capacity. Maybe Hashem, certainly okay, we believe that Hashem gives us the capacity to overcome challenge. But what was the challenge? The challenge was to have emunah and to know that this came from Hashem. And that if I failed at that moment, it's in order that I learn to become more humble and see Hashem more. Okay? And that through seeing my weaknesses, through seeing my limitations, I get to recognize I am a small, pathetic human being. And that's what Hashem has made me. And the more I realize that the Hashem dwells with the lowly, Hashem dwells with the brokenhearted. That's why, again, we can understand now in the context of that, why does Hashem dwell so much with the brokenhearted and with the lowly? Because they are the ones that realize that they're nothing. When we realize that we're nothing, that we have made mistakes, that we have limitations, and that we're so imperfect, that creates the space for Kadosh Baruch Hu to be there and for us to see that Hashem is the only perfection. But as soon as I think, well, I've got that one right. Well, I really got this down. Well, I'm so successful in that area. As soon as I start to think that I did it, it's my strength. It's all that I put in. It's the hishtadlus that I did, and it's the effort that I put in, and it's my prayer that got me this result. I did it. Okay. Thank you, Chana Ruchi. Right. Hashem is the Reifer, the Shviri Lev. Kadosh Baruch Hu heals all the broken hearts because it's the broken-hearted that He loves, the ones who recognize how limited, fractured, broken we are, and that none of the apparent good that we have is through us, that it's all from the rachamim and the goodness and the compassion of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that gives it to us. And so our choice, this one step of choice that Rav Dessa says the Nekudas HaBechira, our choice is actually how much are we seeing a Kadosh Baruch Hu right now, and how much are we seeing Hashem? That's the on-off switch of emunah, bitachon, and of free choice. And when we go back to Paro and understand in Parshas Bo that from the fear of the plague, Paro couldn't judge logically and see and come to see Hashem. He was too overwhelmed by the enormity of the devastation that was going on around him. And so Hashem hardened his heart so he could have the capacity to see and think and recognize Hashem, not out of the fear of the plague. Okay, Hashem balanced the field for Paro, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu balances the field within us as well. All of the life situations that a Kodesh Baruch Hu puts us in, it's in order that we can know Him more and become less in our own eyes, not become meaningless in our own lives, not meaningless, but in order that we should become nothing other than Hashem. Nothing other than Hashem doesn't mean that we're nothing. It means that we're nothing other than Hashem. It means that we're only a conduit for Kadosh Baruch Hu. So we're not nothing. We're actually everything because we're part of the Hashem. We are that conduit. We are the piece of the Kadosh Baruch Hu sends down His light in the sun, as it were, to this world, and we are a sun ray, but we're not our own sun. We're not giving off our own light. We have no light of our own. The sun is not giving off its own light. It's giving off the Kadosh Baruch Hu's light that Kadosh Baruch Hu put inside the sun. But if we imagine ourselves as a sun ray of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's light that He put into the sun, and Hashem is giving off down to the world, so we're nothing other than an incredible conduit of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's light. So we're not nothing, but we're part of the everything. We're not so our mistakes and our limitations and the darknesses inside ourselves and the shadows that we see lurking inside ourselves, they actually don't make us less of a conduit of the light of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. They don't take away from that. How does that work? Another one of the miracles of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed the ice of the plague of hail to exist within a fireball covered with ice. Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed the fire and ice to coexist, and that's what came down. And within ourselves, the light and the dark coexist, and it doesn't take away from being part of the conduit of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And one of the greatest complexities of our lives is that there is such darkness coexisting with so much light. But it doesn't take away from us being ein omer v'adai. It's not that our mistakes are a part of something else that's not godly. But no, Kadosh Baruch Hu chooses to run His world in such a way that even the mistakes that we made, even the bad midos that we have, are a part of how Kadosh Baruch Hu chooses to reveal Himself in this world, even through our loneliness, even through our mortal, human, limited ways of going through the world. And ultimately, it's all going to make a Kiddush Hashem. Ultimately, even the biggest mistakes that we make will turn around to be a Kiddush Hashem. And we can do it, Be'ez Hashem, during our lifetime by doing tshuva ba'ava for anything that we ever did. And if we use it as a springboard to know a Kadosh Baruch Hu even greater, to turn it into a deeper knowledge of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a deeper awareness of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then it's fulfilled its purpose. And we've come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu through that. And so we made the light out of that darkness already. And if we don't manage to do tshuva me'ava in this lifetime, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will clean us up in the first year after we pass away, and through all eternity we will be living close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the merits of all of the life that a Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us and allowed us to fulfill in this world. But so Emunah, the choice of Emunah, is a choice to see a Kadosh Baruch Hu in this moment, or not to see a Kadosh Baruch Hu in this moment. And of course we're going to fail, because, meaning we're not all the time, but we're going to fail a lot, because we don't see a Kadosh Baruch Hu all the time here with our physical eyes. As Rav Pinkas Zitzal said in Sharim B'Tefillah about Tefillah, that when we daven to Hashem, we don't see Hashem. We may see the results of Hashem. So there's always hope, even for those who are still, there's always hope. And at every increment of seeing Hashem more and more and more, we're doing what we can do at that moment. And we can turn everything around with more emunah, with another moment of emunah, and that's our greatest choice. And so every increment of choice is a choice of seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of looking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and even those of Pinchas, I was supposed to say, as Pinchas said, that we have to use our imagination to imagine HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's not something we can see with our eyes. We cannot, right? And not only that, but the physical world is so imminent. It's so powerful and strong. It sucks us in. We see things, we hear things. And so we have a mitzvah. You see things, you want things. Your neighbor has things, and maybe you're going to want it. Other people have things, and you don't. And you're going to look. And this is the physical world we get drawn into. Emunah is the answer to every bad midah. A person's jealous, have emunah. A person's frightened, have emunah. A person is despairing, have emunah. Emunah is the answer to everything. It's the choice to either see Hashem or not see Hashem. Of thinking of I'm nothing, or I'm nothing other than Hashem. I believe in myself. Well, I don't believe that I'm separate from Hashem, which is yush, which is despair. I'm nothing. No, I'm nothing other than Hashem. That means I'm part of the everything. I'm part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is the essence of everything and the koch of everything, and unlimited power. That's what I really am. And I'm nothing other than that. Even the darkest parts of me are nothing other than that. Do I understand that? I don't understand, but I understand that those parts are within me to create the humility to allow me to be a conduit for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, I'll say that again, because I hope this is the main point that I wanted to be clear about today. The darker parts of us are there. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being here. Are there so that we can recognize how humble we are, so that we can be a humble conduit for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blessing. If anybody wants to unmute and ask a question or share a perspective or an insight, I'll look in the chat and see if any questions there and respond to them. If anybody has something, let me see if there are any other. Yes. Okay. So, hi everybody. Thank you all for sending messages in the chat. Anybody want to unmute or ask anything or add anything?
Hi.
I'd love to hear from you. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Hinda. I have such a question. I loved what you said, everything you said. It's amazing.
Great to hear you.
Thank you. Ditto. So a question I have is like this. Let's say you in the process of getting help, you go to a practitioner, and then you have they act unprofessional, and maybe they say something, and they are or whatever happens within that situation. And then, like, I know that it's Hashem, right? I know Hashem is sending this person to tell me whatever it is, just like any other person. So the question is, I'm having a doubt in my mind. Does that, I don't know what to do with that, the next thing. Like, I always have a problem with how to process the next step. Like, yes, I know it's coming from Hashem. So part of me is saying, okay, I'm going to take it because it's a little musar. And I need the musar, and maybe Hashem wanted me to hear it because I for the development of my character. So that's one point. But then the other point is, wait a minute, is this person really so right? Like maybe they're a little out of touch. Maybe they're not so professional. And then I always find myself like doubting, which one am I supposed to listen to? And what do I learn from it? And how do I marry both of them together? And both knowing that they come from Hashem, I don't know what to do next.
Okay, great. Great question. Okay, so the Stolen Rebbe Shlita said, don't be a friar, which means don't get taken advantage of. What that means is that part of being a Torah Jew is looking at how things are supposed to run professionally, and meaning being aware of what's right. And it's okay to say it doesn't work for me to buy shoddy goods. Okay, I don't have to take shoddy goods and pay full price and not get not get professional service. So what it means is, if a service giver makes a mistake, and maybe they're unprofessional ones, that everybody could mess up. I'm sure I've messed up. Everybody could mess up. But do they take accountability? Do they say, oh, that shouldn't have happened, I'm so sorry, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again? And they take accountability for it? Or do they brush it off, act like nothing happened, and make it out that you're the problem? Okay. So take accountability that would mean you give them, let's say, another try and see. If they continue doing the same things and you realize nothing is changing, then you have to ask yourself, is this the kind of service that I'm prepared to keep paying for?
Hmm.
And so you don't have to keep paying for service that feels unprofessional to you, and especially if a person is unprofessional. And maybe again, the opposite of accountability is where you're turned into the problem. Why are you complaining about this? Why you're making a big deal about something when it's actually unprofessional. So if you know something feels unprofessional, doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel like right, if you're uncomfortable with it, um, then meaning even if I had a situation with a client where a client was very uncomfortable with something, it was not a professional issue at all. It was just a personal preference that she had, and she mentioned to me one time, I'd really prefer if we did something like this instead of that. I said, no problem. You, I want to make you as comfortable as possible, and so I tried to come close to what the client wanted. I'm sure that I've made mistakes, but I try to be accountable and certainly never blame the client for it. So again, there are two parts to that. The first part is you don't have to take service that isn't professional, and that's
Hmm.
not called it's not being mavater, okay, in taking less than the service that really you're paying for, and you should be able to expect from a service provider. If the service provider takes accountability and takes steps to make amendments for what they did and changes their policy and does it differently in the future, then great. If they refuse to take accountability and blame you, that's a big red flag. But even if they don't take full responsibility and they just keep on they don't blame you, but they're a little bit lax in how they do it, then you have to ask yourself, does this suit me? Is this something that I'm comfortable with? And you're allowed to say, I'm not so comfortable with it, even though there's nothing actually wrong with them, but it doesn't meet my standard. Everyone has their own standard. I know a Rav a very dear Rav who was a family friend, was a Rav in a shul for many unaffiliated families, and one of the families came to him once that their son had become religious and didn't want to eat in a local restaurant that they had used. They'd often taken him out to eat, and they enjoyed going out to eat. And so this Rav who understood how to speak to these families. He said, there are some people that will drive any car, and some people will only drive a Porsche. You know, so for your son, the cashiers of that restaurant is not good enough. He's his cashiers. He only wants to have a Porsche. So that family could understand his language, and basically, you're allowed to decide for yourself. Anyone's allowed to decide for themselves the kind of standard that they want in any given service, and it's not being again, it's not being inappropriate. It's not being snobby. It's just saying that's the standard that I wanted. If you're paying for it, then you get to choose the standard that you want to have for yourself. So in between a red flag or in between something that could be appropriate and making amends, and then you choosing for yourself, I hope that answered that question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments, anything anyone wants to share or add to? Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed being here with everybody in this Hand Manti space where we try and grow in our Emunah B'tachon. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Good Shabbos.